My name's Dan Gibbs. I grew up here on the west side. I grew up in River Forest and Oak Park. I went to Fenwick. I live in Galewood right now, just actually about a block or two away from Michael's Beef. I garden a lot, and whether that's on my own property or with some other organizations that I work with. I'm also affiliated with a group called the Austin Green Team, which is a group of growers in the Austin neighborhood who currently manage 6 properties which at one point were blighted buildings or just beat down properties that they've turned into these really beautiful city gardens. And it's literally just minutes away from here. But they're a really interesting group of super technical growers, and it's a lot of fun to be working with them, specifically in Chicago, trying to make the Austin neighborhood, just a better place. I used to be a farmer. For a number of years, I had a good-sized farm in Wisconsin where I was growing produce for families, bringing it down here to Chicago, and also selling to grocery stores and markets. Is anyone familiar with what a CSA farm is? Okay, so that's what I was. I was a CSA grower. I had 100 families here in Chicago that I was bringing produce to every week, in addition to the grocery stores and restaurants. But it was, it was a very productive little produce farm, and I learned quite a lot over those years, specifically in growing produce. So Austin Green Team, like I said before, this is actually my backyard at my Austin building. When I moved into that building, I killed half my backyard intentionally and then just grew as big of a garden as I could put on that property. And I bring that back every year and give the food away to my neighbors or whoever's really looking for it. But I kind of wanted to do it as an experiment just to see what I could do on a little city lot. And you can do quite a bit. I also have a little side business where I set up food gardens in people's backyard, or if they're looking for any kind of help. I built a garden at a school the end of the summer last year down on the south side, but putting raised beds or gardens on people's property is just something I do on the side for fun. But I enjoy that, and I enjoy helping people learn how to grow food. So I like to start off with the green thumb myth because I grew up with that whole idea of a green thumb kind of beaten into my head, and it's totally fake. So I just kind of like to think that everybody and nobody has a green thumb, and their gardening isn't as complex as a lot of people think. And I think if you remember a couple basic things, it takes luck entirely out of the picture, and we'll talk about that. So specifically getting into seed starting, what is it, who is it for? And I like to think of seed starting basically as starting a plant in one place with the intention of moving it to its permanent place. So starting a plant, in a protected spot, because what you're trying to do anytime that you're starting seeds indoors is you're trying to beat the weather, or you're trying to beat if there are bugs or anything, but you're trying to kind of outsmart the elements. And that's what seed starting is all about. It's about starting a plant in a protected area so that when it's ready and strong, you can put it somewhere else. So anyone can start seeds. You don't need a greenhouse. You don't need any type of fancy equipment at all. You need seeds, you need soil mix, a container. Lots of different containers will do, and you need sunlight. You see the container that we have up there, that's kind of something that commercial growers use, and I brought one of these with me, to where I could start off 180 plants at a time on one of these. Pretty nice thing to have. Seed catalogs, Johnny's Seeds, will have these. Sugar Beet may have these available for you, but it's a real nice way to get baby plants started in a small spot. So why would anyone make the effort for this? And the reason I put this picture up is, this is just something they do at Home Depot. They're starting seeds indoors so that when the time comes that you can put them out, the plants are big and ready. So if you think, about, well, I got to get my tomatoes in sometime after, say Mother's Day. Well, Home Depot is not going to make any money if they wait till Mother's Day. So they started those tomato plants in February. And so that, come Mother's Day, they've got these giant plants that are just ready to go and strong to plant in your garden. So you want to get a jump on the season. You want to increase your chance of success. And what I mean by that is a baby plant starting out as a seed outside is going to have to contend with a lot. It's going to have to contend with, squirrels, with, fluctuations in weather. You have a much better chance of success if you're putting a fully formed plant outside than if you're starting a seed. It kind of gives you an excuse to start gardening in March, which I kind of like. So, what's an ideal container? And I do hate the answer, it depends, but in this case it kind of does. What kind of space do you have? Where do you have sunlight in your house or where you're going to be planning on doing this? And do you have room for, you may not have room for a seed flat like that, but you may have room for half a dozen Dixie cups. You can start seeds then. So what's your choice in vegetables? And not every plant is a great idea to start indoors. And the one plant that always comes to mind for a plant not to start inside is carrots. And the reason is you may start your carrot seeds in a cup or whatever, but as soon as you disturb that soil to try to plant it outside, they're going to die. They hate being moved. Other than that, you really have a lot of flexibility on what you can start inside. So, which are the best ones? Well, what do you like to eat? How much time does the plant you like to eat take to grow? How sensitive is the plant to the environment, meaning specifically outside? So these are the things that I think about when I'm starting a plant inside. And to give you an idea, think of those big storage onions, those Walla Wallas or Vidalia onions. Those things take 180 days from the time the seed goes into the ground until you can eat it. So it's a great idea to start a plant like that inside. You can start that in February and you'll be able to harvest it by July. But you wouldn't be able to start it outside in February. So that makes it a good candidate for a transplant. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So what are good veggies for starting indoors? And rather than naming off specific plants, I like to think in terms of the plant families. So, and the names of these families aren't really necessarily important. You'll know what I'm talking about. But your onion families, like I just said, they're great. It's a great option for something to start indoors. Anything in the cabbage family. And the reason for anything in the cabbage family is because they typically take a long time. They might take 60 to 80 days. So if you start them inside and get them outside in the early spring, you're giving yourself a great window to be able to harvest it outside, once you're, into the summer. Your nightshades, your tomatoes, peppers, and eggplant are typically the number one thing that people like to start inside. And the reason behind that is, like I'm saying, because they take so darn long before you can pick a tomato up. And so rather than having to wait for your entire tomato harvest in mid to late September, you can start the tomato plant inside, get it outside as a full plant, and you'll be picking tomatoes in July. Any of your summer or winter squash is another good one for a similar reason. It's another one that takes a long time to grow. Specifically, butternut squash, pumpkins, anything in the winter squash family, they take a long time. So they're a nice one to start early inside. Then once you get them outside, you could just kind of let them go until around Thanksgiving time when you're ready to harvest them. Beets and Swiss chard and these are baby beets right here at a seed flat. Those are great to plant inside rather than only direct seeding them outside. Beets can be funny when you seed them outside. You may feel like you're planting a million seeds and you get a row with like 8 beets in it. Well, If you had a seed plat like this or a Dixie cup and you planted a couple seeds in each one, you would know exactly what was going out there and you would be planting something that was already ready to go. Head lettuce. So head lettuce, where it sounds like it might be an easy one for people, sometimes head lettuce can drive people crazy because if it's growing in the warm season, it starts flowering before you could pick it. So once that outside temperature starts getting in the 80s, 90s during the day, the lettuce starts thinking about going to flower. So if you start lettuce inside where the temperature is constant and it's in a protected area, and then get it outside as a full plant while it's cool, you don't have to worry about it going to flower while you're right during the time when you would want to be eating it.